hotefo anaasɛ ɛsoma wodoma hotefo ebenya de akwakodi ho anaasɛ edin ene wo nanso eni ho ɛhyɛ nipa da sani ebetu akɔwiem ene onyankropɔn akɔtena democracy ɛyɛma bibifo anaasɛ ɛnyɛma yɛn kwasi broni trim popa ene senti a wɔde vaccination ɛba abibiman mu na family plan so mpo no ɛhyehyɛ bɛn ana kwasi broni hyehyɛyɛ ɛwɔ de krom enti a wɔde ɛtoa yɛn ɛba ne sɛn ana gay ate atese ɛwɔ wiase afana nyinara ɛnɛ wese illuminati ɛnɛ wese freemason ɛnɛ wese sumwe mu ne nyinara ahyase firi he no broni trim po a wɔde saa nneɛma wɔ nyinara ɛba no de atoa abibiman mu no ɛne sɛn wei entram so hwɛ wake up africa kwasi da wei ni kwasi da bia awia dumienu ɛkɔpem awia no mienu live on Royal TV ɛyɛ adwumadi a ɔfa poku danko yɛ executive director ɛdema free the mind movement ɛne ɔfa Israel Nkroma a ɛyɛ coordinator ɛdema free the mind movement no
ɛbɛka me Kofi Kumi ho
na yɛsim konya no madi dwumadi ho kyia me na ɛnsɛm bi ati sei no yɛgyina twɛ kronkron so abakɔsɛm ɛne ntwerɛ ahodoɔ so na ɛdeɛ mo ho baabi a obibini ufiri ɛne mu a ɛduro ɛne som a wosombo na mabrɔfo sisi akyɛ ɛbra so sɛ call together twɛ ne kaeɛ no ɛtumi bam na no ana ahyɛ aseɛ o free the mind movement dwumadi ɛfrɛ sɛ wake up africa dwumadi so praso sɛ yɛfa dwumadi live on Royal TV so kwasi da wei ni kwasi da bia awia dumienu kɔpem no mienu na yɛagye wo so adwenkyerɛ ne wasɛm bisa yɛyɛ ano ɛde ama wo wake up africa abibiman moma yɛn sɔre
yeah, one business general abatown Niko multimedia so pay video editing photo shoot photo editing documentary business advert music video funeral program birthday parties onua uni haukra esan say Niko multimedia ebeye ni nyina na so yenwie yo se wo ye wedding papa bi Niko multimedia si en ha ho kra o me cover ni nyina ma se wo ye asori anaso se wo ye edwumakuo bi a wo pese wo streaming live o program aye social media handles na aye Twitter Facebook and the keka ho na Niko multimedia si woni how esan so mo ye ni nyina live abra program na ekoso Niko multimedia si omotonton gadget aye media gadget papa ebini aye audio and video equipment cameras speakers microphones mixers ni nyina Niko multimedia aye ho adwuma Niko multimedia ewo koforidia eho ana motare betimi afre Niko multimedia ewo 0244549107 aye Niko multimedia the media general ewo town. Thank you.
MCA Sabi we ne guso a wo share eye dwumadi a yatuni din say Wake Up Africa Royal Television so fidikase so na obenya sa dwumadi yi osomfo Kofi Kumi atena gwam na onim say kwasi adadu na premoto say ya na meje magwa say ya na kire say enya sam ketwa eye Wake Up Africa dwumadi Royal Television so na mpanyifo mienu a dwumadi kwasi adabia du na premoto a meni omsi nkonwa me etimi de dwumadi somo no eye wo fa ya opoku dankwa our executive director Edema Iko friend Free the Mind movement ona ne ba Israel Nkroma ono so ye national coordinator Edema Free the Mind ko no me no kasa mpanyifo no abeka mensa adwumadie no ene ye de ba besom na onim se mpanyifo yi omotena se a oma ye hwehwem ni mpensempensem mafa ye amamre abakosem eniema ye abrabom asetena mu dwumadie ye sikasem ntoto ye nkua ye chese eba abrabomu a panyifo ya hwehwema dosu kopa ne fa bibifo ho ene kwasi kokko ho enu nti babia wo de panyifo ebefa bia no ombewura na ofade ose sasem no eye no krenko na ohode a esan se dika na se dika de a edika nti no ono onfa nkame yenda otena fidie yi so otena konwa kase yi mu a obesane ni nyina obetwe ni nyina afibama no so no be sanim no kware kwanso krojen so na ode amaye esa ansa da bia mo be kaya mo kaya aya otaka asem bi o se ye pa entro ehontoma ntina me se mete ana makase sa asem no eye no krenko ebi ka de a ene ofa se onfa nkame yen esa ansa se ye no kwa a pa entro hontoma nko ade a ene ye sharp ene ye wura wa ye krado obaya mayen ani santi na wotwe ne otena afidie yi so no ampa ode ye wura mu eye owura bi a ye friend Nimrod ama ye hu Nimrod no oba wiase na bra bo ye ene nia ojato ho ma nchirima na no ana ofade ya wuram beye episode mienu eye ne mpompon so mienu topic na ofade ya wuram no ane eye Nimrod oye bibini tuntum opie wo Babylon Mesopotamia empotemu ho eye Africa abibrem owura yi obedi din pa na odin siseye ebre nipa na ne siseye no ebegina eye sanya ye Gavin nipa ye bu udi nipa beboabo nipa no na wa chekere wom wa Gavin wom na ke se wadi wom anim anase wadi wom so eno eye baako ene ne toso mienu osan ekire nipa nyamesom kwan eye religion na ofa ma yehu mane de adi se sa owura ide na brabo sa babo na obebo ye ne niam ya obehye ye no eye nea ode sori ti anyankopon enti eno any legacy abrabo obebo ye no nea ojama nchirima se nchirima nhwe na omuntu so na mo nante so no eye sa se nchirima nhwe se omabrabo omobo no omo be sori ti anyankopon na eno ana ofa ma ye dana dia ma ye hu se abesi ne eno ene wiase ekuramu a esanse ono ne nipa odi kan a obachekere empire eye ye ka amamuo se mebua nipa nyina no na madi omanim na madi omoso na makere omokwan nsiseye ene ade ono odi kan be ye saade no enti wo pe eye empire ne ye hu a amamuo a ene eye ya adwin se kwasikoko na de bra ya kwasikoko atu ni din se ne de din se democracy na pato enye kwasikoko na de baaye kwasikoko betoyi on mesua ye ebe hu se abakosem bi wo ho we tete abakosem eno na ofa peja ode amayen eye na wotwe mienu na topic we ye ho adwuma no enne de yi eye ne etoso miensa ne episode no eye ne etoso miensa ofa se tenase eno nti last week no ofa ma ye hu kwan nam so a Nimrod na brabo se na Bible kan na e kan tiawa no ofa de ye wura mu hu se kwan ya ofa so a obedi din be ye nipa kese ene kwan ya fa so mpo a ni wo e baaye ni nyina no Bible na nka nanso fa jeme last week ema oda na di ma ye hu kwan ya fa so a nam so a Nimrod ni wo baaye eno ena ofa se ene otoa so eno nti ebia na wo ni fie nanso jumadie opese oka ho life okọ Abefontain tanso a oyehwe Wake Up Africa GH Wake Up Africa GH a me ba cho YouTube and Facebook obenya ne live na waka ye ho na jumadie ye nyina ye di okọ a pa cho adoma bi ho click so subscribe na share efama yen na wonua no ma omantimi antra fidie hu antimi anhwe no YouTube omatimi anya no ma hwe bi chamawom na omunso ensem da ensem pankwaje sem we ya wanya no wonso atimi ama wonua ne nsa akabi ebia mepacho sanso so na WhatsApp message mepacho matena si fabrani ane 0206519335 0206519335 WhatsApp ena WhatsApp message ena normal text message fabrani makenkan e de amount afi maka ne sa no yere company fo no ho na ya do madi na afi dwumadie no ye dia hye so Israel
Kumi
no akwa
good
me gidi say abrabo no
everything is good
enene nansa me kokofo bia na me di nkomo me di nkomo ne sa obi nipa na me hia wo no me ye no bi say me say me gidi say ofa ne Israel ho ye e ho ana ba ko je so say life is good. Now you say, "Oh no, kai me say ha." I am not a penny of Israel. I am okano. I say life is good.
Good.
And until life is good, and your bad ye and I yes you dana say. And until na aba obi begin say one thing and pomuni your boko.
So okay.
My life is good. Eh fantastic.
No.
Sa. Amodin wo ho na life ye gu idie. Minim se abusua no atena se. Eno nti abusua fra abusua onua fra onua no dofo fra dofo. Glue be glued to the seat. Our royal television video kese yi so ye wura mankwa da roma na kwese da bia dwumadi ye de somo na ofa ewo ne pa owo nsempa e de mawo ne senti ofa ye nsembre bi judgment ni ade mawo
yo ko bi e da se ye di ka be chi afefu gina
ofa ahwefo eje wo so
na fi yama kwakuru so akwa aba
okay
Eja.
no kan ye ho
ya kan ni nyina wie no na ye de hihye so na 2 episodes nu nyina no second episode no na ye ka tawa no ho asem ni nyina no the videos no e hwe na na se ka scripture no kura ade ba ko a hankofo adwene si na nipa ni nyina kasa ba ko
okay
until last week e be wie no na me kan say ye be chirechirem ya mo bi ehu se ka say one language de ba de ne ye ka ansa na tawa no edipa be 600 and something thousand wo mu ko hia ya obo ka say ye ko si tawa no na omu fifiri mia ene bae enti Genesis 10 ene ma ye hunu ekuakuo nu bebi a we mu ko ha kasa no omu kani we mu ko ha kasa no omu kani enti yanko Genesis 10 verse 5 no akọ verse 20 no akọ verse 31
Genesis chapter 10 yidi kan na ye verse 5 and they say, by these were the Isis of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue.
Everyone after his tongue.
After their families, in their nations. Like I said, mine in the casa who don't know what and near what the okay. And Nimrod did know.
Verse 20 is where we
okay, verse 20 no or say, these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries and in their nations. Now Yako 31 no 31 they say, these are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations of Ambacho maybe.
And you know, bia woni kasa oka. Enya kasa ba ko tisania ye nyina na de ye mfampo enye se ye kan ya mamra ye free Israel ene be pie ha. Ne we Israel ne Hebrew ne ka.
Ne kwa Hebrew.
Enje ba ni se na ave de be pie ha. Me asantini, me fantini, me enkrani, me agbeni Entiabe meka awlo meka eve meka akan meka fanti meka gan eba ni say enyina na eka kasa ba ko nti se fa no se no wa ne man kra o mu tifie no mu ka kasa ya bro mu ko tretre ya we ko ha no environmental influence. It's a kasa hudu nyina. But in this context, you know, na linguistics ena ye kasa ni ye kasa baako. There be ya kura yetimi translate kasa mumye nyina fu adwini mmom na nya baako. Adwini wo de wo timi de wo tu we de wo ni trim. Enti ya kasa nya baako a objective ene ye kan. And in this context, the objective, you know, and the general see one language. And then the person you sit tower near could 2 over there so now Yakako travel last week, you know, yet you win left if you were more. And to say a cancer near you know, Kakasa Bakwa. And your linguistics, senior a software name, one more money essays or meaning babu, I can't chunk of what they are sent of what. I didn't say basa. One language, one object, and the United Nations, member nations, they can one language. You see the sustainable development goals. A kwan be na ebe faso a yebetu ohia ase, yebetu ekomo ase, yebetu yare ase, yebenya enkoso. They are speaking one language. Eno nchese linguistics. Korea boy wo mu ka omo Korea kasa. English speaking countries wo mu ka omo brofo. Because how kra no there were translators. Eduru so na akokasa kan wukro mu kasa ye be translate am any ayentini nyina be hu say na work. It is a scripture can say one language. Adentina oh na kasa nyanti ahwiti wo mu na kasa ahwiti wo mu de ba ni say ye ne ane ye shem asefo no e de ne kan kasa data nti ye sa ko together ye dim ye ho ene ye sa ko ba bi ye wo ye ne ye Jafet ene asefo no yesu ye dim ye kasa dada nti yesu ye ko ye kwan ye ko ye ena ko so ye ham no so ko ye obi akọ ba bi aso
ofa nema on be sua wo Nimrod na ase no
eno na be
no mo tam ye no bi ade ko ni kuro mu ne ba bi a
ofie
de bae
nti no adenti na etibitra ho mai ha ho nti men samre no kura no first video no ba be chire ba me nyina ehu na hwe video no a ho na abeti ase ese say objective ni eka first video ese
first video no abodi adaso no when language is an objective to be achieved. Sa video no mama yehwe.
Experts agree that the Tower of Babel must have been a ziggurat, a stepped structure made up of superimposed platforms, solid inside and with exterior ramps or staircases that allowed one to ascend to the sanctuary located at the top. A modern and visible example that allows us to understand what this tower would have looked like is the Ziggurat of Ur, located in southern Iraq, one of the best preserved in the ancient world. Although today mainly its lower levels are preserved, the structure clearly shows the step design, the baked brick walls, the arrangement of the front ramps, and the use of materials similar to those described in the biblical account. This ziggurat, dedicated to the moon god Nana, offers a visual reference of what the Tower of Babel might have looked like: a monumental rectangular base, increasingly narrow ascending terraces, and a terminal sanctuary or platform. Archaeological studies indicate that the construction of a structure of this type required thousands of workers, specialized kilns operating continuously for the firing of bricks, heated asphalt tanks to fix and seal each section, and temporary side ramps intended for the transport of materials as the work reached greater heights. Flavius Josephus mentions that the Tower of Babel reached an extraordinary height, and this reference coincides with the information contained in ancient Babylonian tablets, such as the Esagila, which describe ziggurats that could approach 90 meters in height. This figure harmonizes with the monumental model of the ziggurat of Babylon, the Etemenanki, considered by many to be the possible historical reference of the tower mentioned in scripture. Therefore, when observing the ziggurat of Ur today, with its stepped design, its solid core of bricks joined with bituminous materials, its oven-baked exterior walls and its system of ramps, provide a clear and tangible picture of what the structure the ancients built on the plain of Shinar would have looked like. A colossal building, erected with millions of baked bricks and reinforced with asphalt, following the Mesopotamian architectural tradition, intended to create elevated temples of great visual and technical imposingness. This tangible and visible image is complemented by the testimony transmitted through ancient Jewish traditions, where some midrashim describe that the construction of that tower lasted for many years, in a relentless process in which the workers worked in shifts, day and night, without allowing the work to stop. According to these descriptions, entire caravans tirelessly brought fired bricks, beams, tools, and containers of heated asphalt. Meanwhile, long lines of workers went up and down side ramps carrying materials to the upper levels that were being raised layer by layer, one after the other. Tradition tells that the magnitude of that enterprise was such that if a worker suffered an accident or fell from a height, it was hardly even mentioned. But if it slipped from their hands and shattered on the ground, it lamented the loss, because the risks of firing and transporting a single brick to a that according to had as behold, all are a that the inhabitants of Shinar shared, and what elements allowed them to change projects of magnitude. Although scripture not what the original language was, scholars have suggested before dispersion, there may have been a primitive and unified form of communication that preceded the diversification of Semitic languages. Based on the archaeological context of the Fertile Crescent, some linguists that initial language may have shared or evolved into languages such as Akkadian or early forms of Afro-Asiatic languages. Other specialists use Sumerian as an indirect point of reference, not but also because the old and allow understanding were structured in the first cities. Sumerian, with its complete technical precision and abundant terminology related to architecture, measurements, material, and administration, illustrates the type of language that would facilitate coordination of a monumental project such as a ziggurat. Whatever the original language may have been, the central point emphasized by the text is that all the inhabitants of Shinar understood each other without barriers, transmitted orders without confusion, and could coordinate each stage of the work with accuracy. This common language made it possible to organize work shifts, supervise brick-baking kilns, direct transport caravans, assign simultaneous tasks, and plan the raising of increasingly higher platforms. Thanks to that unified communication, the population remained cohesive, advanced in unison, and managed to get thousands of hands to work as if they were a single force, raising the tower layer by layer without interruption. It is precisely this unlimited capacity for organization that the biblical text highlights when it shows that God came down to observe the city and the tower that men were building. According to the story, seeing the effectiveness, determination, and absolute unity of the people, God declared that with a common language, nothing would stop them from completing any purpose they set for themselves, including the erection of a structure whose intention was to reach the heights. It was in this context that he decided to end the project, not by destroying the tower directly, but by intervening in the element that made them invincible as a collective force, their language. Let's read verses 7 through 9 of Genesis chapter 11. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there he scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. These words begins the decisive moment in which the tower project is halted, not for lack of materials, human force, technical capacity, but because communication, and the people interrupted it.
Babel no na yɛn nyinaa no ɛsi ase ne one language na ɛfa yɛ tayɛ ɔdi nya yɛ one language ama buildings as skyscrapers are intended here as enclosed structures with continuously occupiable floors and a height of at least 350 meters. Hey, that is 1,150 feet. Such definition includes non-building structures such as towers. History of the world's tallest buildings. Historically, the world's tallest man-made structure was the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, which held the position for over 3,800 years until the construction of Lincoln Cathedral in 1311. The Strasbourg Cathedral in France, completed in 1439, was the world's tallest building until 1874. The first building considered to be a skyscraper was the 138 feet, that is 42.1 meter, Home Insurance Building, built in Chicago in 1885. The United States would remain the location of the world's tallest building throughout the 20th century until 1998, when the Petronas Towers were completed. Since then, 2 other buildings have gained the title. Taipei 101 in 2004 and Burj Khalifa in 2009. Since the beginning of 21st century, the Middle East, China, and Southeast Asia have experienced booms in skyscraper construction. The 828 meter, that is 2,717 feet tall Burj Khalifa in Dubai has been the tallest building since 2009. The Burj Khalifa has been classified as mega tall. It has 163 floors plus 2 below grounds. Okay,
and the Nimrod legacy no awaja wo wiase no ebi ni.
Oba ye say ye to aso.
Yeah, to aso.
Ya to aso pa, manfo ato.
Ebi num kura Saudi Arabia for sim tower bi. Eno be ye Amaduba de na ye small kura.
Hey. I see. Nimrod the giant.
Na la me visa ko kusendi. Ono height be ru graphic de du sumo chini no.
I never got that idea. Me come you.
Ebi awo jiri hudi. Ye kwa we.
Oba so odu height bi ontumi to aso. Because only chin. The cash. Into concession the bonnet. Bottom.
That's a speed no and that's side net it me. I dey inform am about my auntie net.
In the concession net a powerful net.
Okay, near there.
Accra, Ghana Commercial Bank circle. Me pie. Yeah.
Okay.
People we.
Oh, get on net so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you know. Into we say no. I wonder.
No, nipa be papa Nimrod dey no.
So yeah, o ma ka record no pom wu ye no.
Omunka. No dey Bible na dey Bible no ga wa say da anya yiwa. Eno asem dey wato atwene kura.
Obato aso.
Mo am ka wa say
mo dey do construction no. Oba fami a. Me fu akunu no be aso ku jai.
Abe to aso dia.
To aso ba me.
Ya wie language no.
Okay.
Ya ba scripture mu bie mu a Abraham dia timi hu ne say Abraham obo ade kan say fi ukrom na ko asase bi a me kira wu na ko na ko fa na tra ho me de ma wo na nanom na ko na ko fa enu nti ama Abraham story no bebre free mu a yentimi hu enti asem ne yenti ase ena asa oba suddenly ena waba ene so oba no ukura wase bedori oba ba ko no awu no ono na mpesa odin ko ba fo wan ka se da bi no sa kan se ma se bedori na da me baba ko nso osime mfa ne ko oye ni nyina tie ho ne ma ye hu se wo gidi na gidie no Bible na ntimi anka ni fiti ase nti ene no ye de sa link ne ba se me ka kire o se Abraham ye wo no mra na Nimrod edi ohene a obedi edi anasa onyini
afa medi edi
fantastic
afa mi ndi wetinye
enti no de ba e de se na ono ne papa ye fa no Terra no ye adwuma wo Nimrod court ne de adwuma no ya se no ton abosom statues and idols o man ni nyina obi onifie a awesome Nimrod de anso ono hweso ejina cheze anunti or access to ohene court tie ko ba se ono ena oni oba bi ena mo beti Abraham ma mi din ono ena okofa oba yi ena onyin se no ma obawo Abraham enti Abraham nso the story no eche baby ewo no emra ewo no eni ni mesisi na mi twa no somewhere san ya ko video no the book of Jasher Jennifer book no chera men kama sem ono no my missing link ni nyina ode tu ha me hu se ampa se netie okofa oba no senia one no efafu a obawo no na Nimrod de na ote story no ote efiza na ne wise men eni na adwuma efo bi eni ne magicians anadwuna ewo Nimrod no wo mu ko fie ko twitwa bi wo mu so wo be gira bonten no wo mu hu se ensuruma kasie bi amene ensuruma enkuma bi enan ewo the four corners of the heavens wa mene wo mu nyina na no na encheche mu no ba ye no wo mu cheche mu se ensuruma kasie no egira ho makora no a Tara awu no na se bedori na washa asasi suma obetam asasi no dia ye ne dia afebo we na Nimrod tes asem no say e de mo Tara mami na me man na nsa akora na wawu no onfa ne mra amemfa ne nyama de nti Tara nso tie ye no e no say de se ni aye ide akora ndiri ko obekunu ene nchirechire mu yi mo makocheche mu de si anadwo no mo hwe ewie mi ne ma esisi ye ne ne keka ho enti no nansa no so ye no ena ono Tera no ne servants no baako eyire ewu akora anadwo no enti ono mbom ena ode no ko Nimrod ho ode ko Nimrod animu no Nimrod so ni mo ano na ho ode no ode no hwire ho no kun no enti free ho no na chese Tera ye se sa mi be no nya no obeku no enu nti o ma ne yire ene nurse baako ene akwara no o mkotena cave enti Abraham nyini wo cave 10 years o free cave no mu ena okọ Noah ene Shem o mu fi aho na okotena ya osua obo ade ho ase enti okotena ho no mu no o certificate questions o mu chire no o tra Noah ne Shem enchen for about 39 years and sana o free ho aba ni papa fie o ba ni papa fie no e no obehu se ni papa ewo idols no bi ho no e ka kire Abraham se we dum ne bo wiase ni asase o wo mu na bo wo so a wa ba ba nyini ayese e jo ke kan ya na Abraham se sa e no free no ko ni ma mi ho no se ma mi asama me papa e kan ni enti sɛ no kredi a sɛ megye didi a wo de yɛ aduane bi ma me na me mfa ma wo no mu ni so wo mutimi didi a ɛne na asɛm papa kan na no kre be ba bi di akiri na so wo ma ni no ma nyɛ hwedi a na kyerɛ sɛ akɔfa asɛm ma no ho de me so mɛyɛ no mɛyɛ ɛyɛ aduane no mpire no first one no Abraham na dwen yɛ ne sɛ ana aduane ne sonti no wo mani ɛyɛ sa ma ne ma me sa yɛ aduane foforo no de bae o mani bi atena ho de whole day wa hunu hwe na ne o ma ayisu na ne obubu statues no ne idols no nyina ɛna ogya baako ɛna ɔde ade ɔde bubu yɛ ne hyɛ ne nsa enti ne papa ti dede no wa abontin ɛna odi mrika ba fi ɔbaa ɔkɔyɛ ɔkɔhwɛ no ahu sɛ na busu mi nyina yɛ dwiri agu no friend ba no se na de so that idea na ma ya also bekum e terror na video wonu no so bekum ana okan terms o na gbo wiase ana me so mi ko mu me ma me so onya aduane na me fa ma o mu ndi na so mu ti bi di a me maji wasam na di aduane na nya baako ya ye ni mpire no nyina we dog o mu nkasa mpu na chese e o ma hu se BBC e ho no o mu ba bi ana de ko ba ni se kọba sẹ ẹkitwa no wo mu ya di aduane na ja panyin no ẹna ni nti onu bubu wo mu gu ye enti bubu ane papa sẹ wo de obe ko ohine ni ama ohine a taking a decision enti memfa enwada ha kakra na ye video no the book of Joshua wo bi ofia chapter 7 ekona yebekinkai antino video ni yebehwe o de wonkai
okay
your second
video no the birth and early life of Abraham according to the book of Joshua mo fasa video no engu emayenhwe.
And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of Yahweh, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. And he made Elohim of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against Yahweh, and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon his son was more wicked than his father. And everyone that heard of the acts of Mardon the son of Nimrod would say concerning him, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. And it was current in the words of men from that time to this. And Tarak, the son of Nekor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects. And the king and princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Tarak took a woman, and her name was Amithalo, the daughter of Kenebo. And the woman of Tarak conceived and bore him a son in those days. Tarak was 70 years old when he begat him, and Tarak called the name of his son that was born to him Abram, because the king had raised him in those days, and dignified him above all his princes that were with him. That's Jasher chapter 7, verses 46 through 51. Let's keep reading to Jasher chapter 8. And it was in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Tarak, and all the wise men of Nimrod, and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Tarak, and they rejoiced with him on that night. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out of the house of Tarak, they lifted up their eyes towards heaven that night to look at the stars, and they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east, and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight. And the sages understood this matter, and they knew its import. And they said to each other, this only betokens the child that has been born to Tarak this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands. And the wise men and conjurers went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. Joshua chapter 8, verse 1 through 5. All right. And so then what they did, just skipping over a lot, they went and told Nimrod, and Nimrod told Tarak to bring his son. But Tarak, he didn't bring Abram, but he brought another child born to his handmaid. Let's keep reading in chapter 8. And Terach hastened, as the thing was urgent from the king. And he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had born to him that day. And Terach brought the child to the king and received value for him. And Yahuwah was with Terach in this matter, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terach, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day. And it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to suffer Abram's death. And Terach took Abram his son secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. And Yahuwah was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up. And Abram was in the cave 10 years, and the king, his princes, soothsayers, and sages thought that the king had killed Abram. Joshua chapter 8, verses 33 through 36. Okay, so this is Abram's beginning, but it gets deeper because Abram goes to live with Noah and Shem. We'll continue on to Joshua chapter 9. And Haran, the son of Terach, Abram's oldest brother, took a woman in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the woman of Haran conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Lot. And she conceived again and bore a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bore a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. And in those days, Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, and the king and his subjects had forgotten the fare of Abram. And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time. And Abram was in Noah's house 39 years, and he went in the ways of Yahuwah until the day of his death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against Yahuwah, and they rebelled against him, and they served other Elohim, and they forgot Yahuwah who had created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his Elohim, Elohim of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the sons of men served them, and they became their Elohim. And the king and all his servants, and Terach with all his household, were then the first of those that served Elohim of wood and stone. And Terach had 12 Elohim of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly, and every month Terach would bring his oblation and drink offering to his Elohim. Thus did Terach all the days. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and they thus made every man his Elohim, but they forsook Yahuwah who created them. There was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew Yahuwah, for they served each man his own Elohim, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew Yahuwah in those days. And Abram, the son of Terach, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and Yahuwah was with him. And Yahuwah gave Abram the understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were vain, and that all their Elohim were vain and were of no avail. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said unto himself, surely now this sun that shines upon the earth is Elohim, and him I will serve. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual. And Abram said with himself, surely this cannot be Elohim. And Abram still continued to speak within himself. Who is he who made the heavens and the earth? Who created upon earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, north, south, and east. And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him, and he said, surely this is the Elohim who created the whole earth, as well as man, and behold, these his servants are Elohim around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all that night. And in the morning when it was light, and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that Yahuwah Elohim had made upon earth. And Abram said unto himself, surely these are not Elohim that had made earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of Elohim. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew Yahuwah and his ways, and he served Yahuwah all the days of his life. And all that generation forgot Yahweh and served other Elohim of wood and stone and rebelled all their days. Joshua chapter 9, verses 1 through 19. So Abraham was in the house of Noah and Shem, and he was trying to understand where Yahweh was. The rest of the world were gathering their idols, making these false images and worshiping wood and stone. But Abraham, he was trying to find who the creator of the earth was. So in this part, you see him trying to figure it out, but he recognized that the sun couldn't be Yahweh, and nor could the moon be. These are all his servants. They all serve under the creator. So as he lived in the house of Noah, he began to learn about Yahweh. And later on, you will see when he finally gets introduced to Yahweh.
Abusia wani guso a wo hwe Wake Up Africa Jumadi Royal Television so ahaya na obenya Jumadi ni sei we ye Abraham na oye Abraham ye sesa ne din ko ye Abraham ne background history o hwe ba bia wo hu e wo Bible nim na ofa akotam akotwi book of Joshua ba e ho na obenya Abraham ne background history e kire ne bobre ni pa ban a oye ene na brabo kwan e fa so ye wo no ene ne nam so a bepie obeye Abraham eno video ena offer ema me no mienu ye kohwe no ti ye nko offer ho na offer ye ho no offer mai offer
enti Abraham did 50 years and oye say kuntu ya etia no okonti abile okoni papa fi okokodo ni papa fie a e papa duna ko chamber bim e na abusumu wala ni o mo ap no si we du na bo wiase o na bo mi bo bia enti so aba we du ni esumu wo bana ni papa nim se ni bana ko nyantete e papa afri Noah ne Shem ho amo ba ye no enam so obo ade sunsun woni mu bebre ntino papa ndile ko tre abusum no ebufu sorry pa enti papa ne kan ni nsem wiye no free ho no obehu ni ma me say asema me papa akani enti wo de ye aduane ma me na me mfa nkoma wo o mutimi didi a na tese papa akan no kure aso o ma ni di a na je say entro enu otwa na we nu mu ntimi mmoa ye kwan bia so enti say yi o mfiri ho a na te say yi o mfiri ho maka ne say wie no uje say de ne siye ye ko hear next video
the next video no abodi da so no eye Abraham destroys his father's idols. That video no mama ye hwe.
Joshua chapter 11 says, and Nimrod, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built. And he called their names after the occurrences that happened to them in the building of the tower. And he called the first Babel, saying, because Yahweh there confounded the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Erech, because from there Elohim dispersed them. And the third he called Akkad, saying there was a great battle at that place. And the fourth he called Calneh, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there, and they vexed Yahweh. They rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes and his mighty men that were left in his kingdom. Joshua chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. And so Nimrod reigned securely, and it was at this time that Abram came home. One of the things that people love to say in their justification of lawlessness is that Abraham didn't keep the Torah and he was found right in the sight of Yahweh. This misunderstanding is had because of the suppression of the Apocrypha. Abraham went back and lived with Noah and Shem, and he learned about Yahweh from them. It says he learned the instruction of Yahweh and his ways. And so Abraham was brought up away from the rebellion at Babel. And if you understand what happens later with Abraham, you can understand how big of a deal that was. So understand, while Nimrod was starting the first world order, we have Abraham learning about Yahweh and learning from Noah and Shem what Yahweh desired. The rest of the world was in rebellion, but Yah preserved one man, and let him hide amongst Noah and Shem, and he preserved him until he was ready to use him. Even Abraham's father was a part of the rebellion, but Abraham was preserved. And so I want you to hold that example, because just because your family is in rebellion, that doesn't mean that Yahuwah is not personally calling you and preserving you. It's what he does. But you have to make the choice to serve him as he is doing this. Let's continue on in understanding Abraham. At that time died Nachor, son of Serug, in the 49th year of the life of Abram, son of Terach. And in the 50th year of the life of Abram, son of Terach, Abram came forth from the house of Noah and went to his father's house. And Abram knew Yahuwah, and he went in his ways and instructions. And Yahuwah Elohiu was with him. And Terach, his father, was in those days still captain of the host of King Nimrod, and he still followed strange Elohim. And Abram came to his father's house and saw 12 Elohim standing there in their temples. And the anger of Abram was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. And Abram said, "As Yahuwah lived, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall Yahuwah, who created me, do unto me, if in 3 days' time I do not break them all." And Abram went from them, and his anger burned within him. And Abram hastened and went from the chamber to his father's outer court, and he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. And Abram came and sat before him. And Abram asked his father, saying, "Father, tell me, where is Elohim who created heaven and earth, and all the sons of men upon the earth, and who created you and me?" And Terach answered his son Abram and said, "Behold, those who created us are all with us in the house." And Abram said to his father, "My Adonai, show them to me, I pray you." And Terach brought Abram into the chamber of the inner court. And Abram saw, and behold, the whole room was full of Elohim of wood and stone, 12 great images, and others less than they, without number. And Terach said to his son, "Behold, these are they which made all you see upon earth, and which created me and you and all mankind." And Terach bowed down to his Elohim, and he then went away from them. And Abram, his son, went away with him. And when Abram had gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her. And he said to his mother, "Behold, my father has shown me those who made heaven and earth, and all the sons of men. Now, therefore, hasten and fetch a kid from the flock, and make of it savory meat, that I may bring it to my father's Elohim as an offering for them to eat. Perhaps I may thereby become acceptable to them." And his mother did so, and she fetched a kid, and made a savory meat thereof, and brought it to Abram. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's Elohim. And he drew nigh to them, that they might eat. And Terach his father did not know of it. And Abram saw on the day when he was sitting amongst them, that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them could stretch forth his hand to eat. And Abram mocked them and said, "Surely the savory meat that I prepared has not pleased them, or perhaps it was too little for them, and for that reason they would not eat. Therefore tomorrow I will prepare fresh savory meat, better and more plentiful than this, in order that I may see the result." And it was on the next day that Abram directed his mother concerning the savory meat. And his mother arose and fetched 3 fine kids from the flock, and she made of them some excellent savory meat, such as her son was fond of, and she gave it to her son Abram. And Terach his father did not know of it. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's Elohim into the chamber. And he came nigh unto them, that they might eat. And he placed it before them. And Abram sat before them all day, thinking perhaps they might eat. And Abram viewed them, and behold, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch forth his hand to the meat to eat. And in the evening of that day, in that house, Abram was clothed with the Ruach Elohim. And he called out and said, "Woe unto my father and this wicked generation, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, hands without feeling, and legs which cannot move. Like them are those that made them, that trust in them." And when Abram saw all these things, his anger was kindled against his father. And he hastened and took a hatchet in his hand, and came unto the chamber of the Elohim, and he broke all his father's Elohim. And when he had done breaking the images, he placed the hatchet in the hand of the great Elohim, which was there before them, and he went out. And Terach his father came home, for he had heard at the door the sound of a striking of the hatchet. So Terach came into the house to know what this was about. And Terach having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, ran to the room to the images, and he met Abram going out. And Terach entered the room and found all the idols fallen down and broken, and the hatchet in the hand of the largest, which was not broken, and the savory meat which Abram his son had made was still before them. And when Terach saw this, his anger was greatly kindled, and he hastened and went from the room to Abram. And he found Abram his son still sitting in the house. And he said to him, "What is this work you have done to my Elohim?" And Abram answered Terach his father, and he said, "Not so, my Adonai, for I brought savory meat before them. And when I came nigh to them with the meat that they might eat, they all at once stretched forth their hands to eat before the great one had put forth his hands to eat. And the large one saw their works that they did before him, and his anger was violently kindled against them. And he went and took the hatchet that was in the house, and came to them, and broke them all. And behold, the hatchet is yet in his hand, as you see." And Terach's anger was kindled against his son Abram when he spoke this. And Terach said to Abram his son in his anger, "What is this tale that you have told? You speak lies to me? Is there in these Elohim ruach, soul, or power to do all you have told me? Are they not wood and stone? And have I not myself made them? And can you speak such lies, saying that the large Elohim that was with them smote them? It is you that did place the hatchet in his hand, and then say he smote them all." And Abram answered his father and said to him, "And how can you then serve these idols in whom there is no power to do anything? Can those idols in which you trust deliver you? Can they hear your prayer?"
Abusia o hwa Wake Up Africa dwumadi Royal Television so na me se wo se ahaya na dwumadi no benya ne sei history of Abraham na we kire Abraham wodu ni mpanyi fie so na obepie ne papa fie na wakosua de ogba ade nim de na ne papa kurom ne manfo de Nimrod hyehyɛ adeye abosomade no ene no mu de akire na kwan ya ofa so de ni nyansa ese ne papa bosom na enam so ma enunti ye kye no ofa dikan abɔ no tofa na sa story we nyina no ofa mbacho mami book no ane ewa ha book of Jasher emu ena story ni nyina no ewo enunti okay so pe book ni bi atwa ane ye pon a ye de number betudwa book of Jasher wa ha book of Enoch nso so wa ha enum na obenya sa story we nyina na ma ansa na mekọ ofa ho no me fa messages ne kakra na ansa na fe makomi papa enchen aha ene messages no we say from Ajay at Duayao Nkwanta. I love these people, God bless them. Okay, like I say a year of ani Israel a year Wake Up Africa dwumadi panyifo etena so na wodo mo no yo omate omuso mo do ye unti ena matem de kwese de no betena afidie so. Please Sita from Techiman, please, where Fulani people from? Yo ofa obisa se ehifa na Fulani for em say the ATM so obisa sa na maybe em say ofa akeka Hebrew for na em say bo Fulani for din enunti na ama em say onipa no obisa sa asem. Okay, good afternoon, I am watching you live from Pramso. Thank you, wise men, for explaining the actual meaning of Genesis 11. Apel, Emmanuel. Yo, Apel, Yedawoso Ase. Where is the Babel building located? Okay. We also question or they no. Please, this is not about the teachings. Please, this is not about the teachings. But I have to ask. God did said he will destroy the world with fire. You also believe in reincarnation, so will the world really come to an end? Okay, what some way there and far and there jumedie no ehun. Okay, over me pacho and some franco for their but no messa about me that.
Enti ko fi me da se. Ye kon Abraham ko say ni papa idols. Ama across certain stage, you know. Ama a confrontation a beba between Abraham and then Nimrod. You have the next video.
The next video no about the spiritual conflict between Nimrod and Abraham. Pacho, video no.
Nimrod and the persecution of Abraham, a spiritual conflict. Nimrod was not just a powerful king or an ambitious ruler. According to Jewish traditions, he was one of the greatest opponents of the true God in ancient times. While he sought to establish an empire based on the exaltation of man, another man emerged who would follow the exact opposite path. His name was Abraham. Genesis chapter 12 verse 1 states that the Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." The Bible does not mention a direct confrontation between Nimrod and Abraham, but the Midrash and the Talmud preserve ancient accounts, suggesting that these two men represented opposing spiritual forces. On one side, Nimrod, who wanted a centralized government and religion where man was glorified in place of God. On the other, Abraham, who was called to leave an idolatrous system and trust only in the true God. But where does the idea that Nimrod persecuted Abraham come from? One of the most famous accounts in Jewish traditions says that Nimrod ordered Abraham's execution in a fiery furnace, but he was miraculously saved. According to the Midrash Bereshit Rabbah, chapter 38 verse 13, Terah, the father of Abraham, worked selling idols for Nimrod. But Abraham, still young, realized that these images were false and destroyed all the idols in his father's house, leaving only one and placing a staff in its hand. When Terah asked what had happened, Abraham responded ironically, "The largest of the idols destroyed the others." His father was furious and took him before Nimrod. The king demanded that he bow and worship fire, claiming that it was a powerful god. Abraham refused, saying that God is the creator of all things, that fire can be extinguished by water, that water evaporates by the sun is covered by clouds, that the clouds are scattered by the wind, and that in the end, the wind is controlled by God. Enraged, Nimrod ordered Abraham to be thrown into the fiery furnace. But according to the account, God protected him, and he came out unharmed, much like what would happen centuries later with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before Nebuchadnezzar, as described in the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verses 19 through 27. These stories are not found in the Bible, but were widely known among the Jews of antiquity. They portray Nimrod as the first great persecutor of monotheism, someone who sought to suppress faith in the true God and impose his own worldview. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 2 states that when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. This account is significant because the parallels between Nimrod and future persecutors of Israel are evident. Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, and Rome followed the same pattern of centralized governments that tried to eradicate the worship of the God of Israel. Nimrod
Abusia ahaya jumade so Wake Up Africa Royal Television so na obenya ne sei na ofadidi beba na ayampa papa ose atro obepa hontoma papa ni tia fidie so say eye bible nwoma na eda ho no enye kwasi kokko dia enye broni story eye before your story ena mpa ofa esama yeti ase say kwasi broni be fa ko ni krom na obutaye bi ti okoye okodane dane ani ekodane dane niema de niema bi sise mu na ne nyina no ose ono oye Hebrew ni na yede na basa o mebi sa adwuma no nti no ba bia omode ntro na se bia no papa ekotwe ba enti hwa Abraham ho story a papa yakofa ba papa ebe adi bi ba kire se mo twa video na wasambo book bi din a etire hwenchi a course between Nimrod and Abraham. Nimrod yes say Abraham abubu na bosom dia eno na oya omunyame na se ono se ono de wasan ne dia enye obepanese no you say the book Midrash, the book of Midrash okwa sa book ni mu a obenya Abraham story one Nimrod bantai obenya ewo ho papa ya se babia no kura ni se bia no a o mayi afi bible no mu o mo de akose no akote no obeyi aba enunti ana papa yi se kwase da bia no ji akonya fraunia odofo mfro odofo na montena dwumadie hu na ha nimdie bia ye de hinta no ofa se obeyi apie ama wonsaka wotefa Nimrod story a bible kan ye no se ye se ye di eche nti uka bible Abraham story a now yeah kese won say du ba bia enti ase ye nya na ekuram Christopher enti bible no a Christopher enyam dia Abraham story mo won say ni amuka no asori dem ho enne ofade Abraham story na kasa no eno na papa no wayi apie afa mba chame dase
ko vin dase enti Abraham ade akoye no e ma ne papa de ebufu tumrika eko Nimrod ho okoye no ane buta ni se ese ekwan bia so Nimrod de papa ne kansa osa kan biem se o ni kase me confession bi a me ye so ba kai a 15 years ago me wa kola bi o kan se me mba no mra ma kirew emo manfa me ba na amba me dia kola fufuo ne ba ya ukun no ene isa me ba ne na di mi dem sei nje na de ekwan bia so no ese me ba no yi ni fra asase so
ikuno
ke ho na ni wro se na ho na dia dwin boni se she wutrim eno se me ba ha oro dia dwin ni ba se so person hu me ba ne dia ese ade obi ba mom na eba o se ene sa dia ko fa haram bra na minya onye sa wo mesu bi ene ja oye ene o confess ye ti achei ene atwe Abraham call ohini next video no Terah confesses and Nimrod Terah confesses and Nimrod orders Abraham to be cast into a fiery furnace. That video no more here.
And Terah, seeing all that Abram had done, hastened to go from his house, and he went to the king, and he came before Nimrod and stood before him, and he bowed down to the king, and the king said, "What do you want?" That's Jasher chapter 11, verses 12 through 50. Abraham didn't have time for it. But either way, Terah went to Nimrod and tried to have Abraham killed. But he snitched on himself that he switched a child in the beginning, but he blamed it on his brother. And so it said, and Terah answered the king, "Because my tender feelings were excited for my son at that time, and I took a son of my handmaid, and I brought him to the king." And the king said, "Who advised you to this? Tell me, do not hide aught from me, then you shall not die." And Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence. And he said to the king, "It was Haran, my eldest son, who advised me to this." And Haran was in those days that Abram was born, 32 years old. But Haran did not advise his father to anything. For Tarak said this to the king in order to deliver his soul from the king, for he feared greatly. And the king said to Tarak, Haran, your son, who advised you to this, shall die through fire with Abram. For the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the king's desire in doing this thing. And Haran at that time felt inclined to follow the ways of Abram, but he kept it within himself. And Haran said in his heart, Behold now, the king has seized Abram on account of these things which Abram did. And it shall come to pass that if Abram prevail over the king, I will follow him. But if the king prevails, I will go after the king. And when Tarak had spoken this to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abram. And they brought them both, Abram and Haran his brother, to cast them into the fire. And all the inhabitants of the land, and the king's servants, and the princes, and all the women and little ones were there, standing that day over them. And the king's servants took Abram his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothes, excepting their lower garments which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords. And the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both into the furnace. And Yahuwah loved Abram, and he had compassion over him. And Yahuwah came down and delivered Abram from the fire, and he was not burned. But all the cords which they bound him were burned, while Abram remained and walked about in the fire. And Haran died when they had cast him into the fire, and he was burned to ashes, for his heart was not perfect with Yahuwah. And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and 12 men of them died. And Abram walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights, and all the servants of the king saw him walking in the fire. And they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abram walking about in the midst of the fire, and even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord with which he was bound is burned. And when the king heard of their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So he sent other faithful princes to see this matter. And they went and saw it and told it to the king. And the king rose to go and see it. And he saw Abram walking to and fro in the midst of the fire. And he saw Haran's body burned. And the king wondered greatly. And the king ordered Abram to be taken out from the fire. And the servants approached to take him out, and they could not, for the fire was round about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. And the king's servants fled from it. And the king rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abram out of the fire, that ye shall not die. And the servants of the king again approached to bring Abram out, and the flames came upon them and burned their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire lest they should be burned, the king called to Abram, O servant of the Elohim who is in heaven, go forth from amidst the fire and come hither before me. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of the king, and he went forth from the fire and came and stood before the king. And when Abram came out, the king and all his servants saw Abram coming before the king, with his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, but the cord with which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abram, How is it that you were not burned in the fire? And Abram said to the king, The Elohim of heaven and earth, in whom I trust, and who has all in his power, he delivered me from the fire into which you did cast me. And Haran, the brother of Abram, was burned to ashes, and they sought for his body, and they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Kasdim. And the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abram was delivered from fire, they came and bowed to Abram. And Abram said to them, Do not bow down to me, but bow down to the Elohim of the world who made you, and serve him, and go in his ways, for it is he who delivered me out of this fire. And it is he who created the souls and ruach of all men, and formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes, that Abram Haran was burned, gave him his
nya yɛfrɛ yɛn mu ja ejatanamu na Haran deɛ yɛsɛ ɔsɛ dwerebɛɛ ɔsɛ dane nso na Abraham deɛ hwee anyɛ no ɛma ne mu sɛ ei na enti saa bere na video na ma yɛhu sɛ Nimrod sɔre a ɔno sɔre tia nyame a ɔboa nipa dɔm ano a na ɔmo yi ɛnam so bepagya ne mu a ɔno nso hyɛ aseɛ sɛ ɔboa dɔm ano ɛde ama ɔbɔ adeɛ na kɛ sɛ obi a ɔno ɔbɔnefo adwuma no bronsam adwuma no asɔre adwuma ɔboa dɔm no nso ɛhwɛ ɔdase na ɔde wɔn ma yanko
ɔkyerɛkyerɛ mu akɔ no
yɛnna abɔdeɛ so yes
on his behalf. Upon hearing anger, is a water. must have as a scheme man's Abraham's release from the furnace, acknowledging him as the faithful and blessed servant of the true God of heaven. When Abraham emerges before Nimrod and the gathered crowd, he humbly advises them not to bow to him, but to believe in the God of truth in heaven instead. Impressed by Abraham's unwavering conviction, Nimrod bestows upon him numerous gifts and even offers him the services of Eleazar, who was previously a slave in Nimrod's household. Some versions suggest that Eleazar may be Nimrod's own son. The story of Abraham holds great significance as it represents a miraculous intervention by God in the process of humanity's redemption following the initial sin and expulsion from heaven. This process began with the flood and the subsequent restart of civilization. Nimrod and the construction of the Tower of Babel symbolize humanity's rebellion against God after the flood. However, Abraham, chosen by God as a leader, emerges as the catalyst for the ongoing process of redemption. In conclusion, the story of Abraham's encounter with Nimrod and the destruction of the idols demonstrates divine intervention, the triumph of faith, and the beginning of a transformative journey for humanity. It serves as a reminder of the power of belief and the role of chosen individuals in shaping the course of history.
Yo, I was saying, oh, shall Wake Up Africa, do the Royal Television. So, aha, and I'll be no back to back Abraham story, no, of a demand back to back. Says I had there. If you are the this is the story we say now far. Ye no baby. Not just say video na ma yahu Nimrod ne breso no. Ah, o sorry ye pagya ni mo de bonne tu atese no. Ye nya obi a ono nso be gina oba de na mu challenge Nimrod a. Nimrod nyema wo ye nyina no. He odinkunim ema Nimrod ankasa jitom se ah dabi Abraham de owo nyame bi a ampa ono bo soro ni asase enti Abraham ma Nimrod hu se ampa onyankopon owo ho ni tumi eye adwuma esan se na Nimrod nim so otumi pa enti ode Abraham fa akwanyina se nyina mu de ne koto prison ye eja a ode omode ne ton mu na ni nyina no 3 nansa wanse na afio Abraham Nimrod ti ye se onhye ye no omuka che na ye ne nwanwa se hey munko yi nimda na me mfa mani hwe omuko fa ne ba ye na kese ampa Abraham hwenye no ogina ho pintin obisa na se ye nyame a ode me ba ye no ono Israel nyame no ono sa ofane ne wenti na ma ye hu se Abraham na kese oye gidie ni odinyankopon achi pa ti se we num ne story a ewo ho a e ma ye ampa Abraham ye nipa ti o se Abraham bedu ye no e ma nipa dodo na hya se omo bom mu ase akoto Abraham se dabi me dia me ye nipa me nya Nimrod a ono de waye no hu nyame a o se obi ankoto nsori no me dia me ye nipa ma nkoto nsori me na emo mufa koto sori no ma asafo Yehowa obo soro eni asase ye Israel nyankopon no sa ena video no ema yehu over bacho medas
kobi enti wenu nyina siwie ye no ha na Genesis ebe mu be kan se obo ade ka kire Abraham se free wo papa enchen ne ko asase a me kire wo no na ko ne ko tena asase no so ha ena ebeye nti the last video no ena dey calling no ba me ehunu say Abraham wa fe bibim enu nti no gba dia friend. Last
video no I say the story of Abraham in the fiery furnace. That video no mama ye.
Casting a terrible light over the city, Nimrod's men had built a furnace so hot that even approaching it was dangerous. Nimrod stood before the people, his throne set high, as Abraham, still bound, was brought forward. Terah, Abraham's father, and Haran, his brother, stood nearby, forced to witness what was to come. Nimrod's voice thundered, "Abraham, bow to the fire and to my gods, or be cast into the flames. Choose now whom you will serve, my gods or your God." Abraham, unwavering, replied, "I will serve only Yahweh, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth." Nimrod turned to Haran. "And you, Haran, whose side are you on? Will you serve Abraham's God, or will you serve me and my gods?" Haran hesitated. In his heart, he was unsure. He said, "If Abraham survives, I will serve his God. If not, I will serve Nimrod's gods." The guards seized Abraham and threw him into the furnace. The fire blazed for 3 days and 3 nights. Yet Abraham walked unharmed among the flames, as if strolling in a cool garden. The people watched in awe, unable to believe their eyes. Seeing Abraham alive in the fire, Haran declared, "I will serve the God of Abraham." He stepped forward and was cast into the flames. But because his faith was not steadfast, the fire consumed him. Terah, witnessing the death of his younger son, was overcome with grief. Nimrod, seeing Abraham alive after 3 days in the fire, fell to his knees before Yahweh. He cried out, "Truly, there is no God but the God of Abraham, who delivers his servants from the fire." In front of all his court, Nimrod honored Abraham, releasing him from his bonds and bestowing upon him great wealth and honor. That night, God spoke to Abraham, reaffirming his eternal promise. "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." Genesis 12:2-3. From that day forward, Abraham was known as the friend of God and the father of many nations. His faith changed the course of history, and the promise of blessing and protection for his descendants remains a cornerstone of both Jewish and Christian belief. The story of Abraham in the fiery furnace, the flames roared.
Abusia, Wake Up Africa, Jumedi, so Royal Television, so Emumu pa se ye kanokra obruni kwasikoko enne ya sofo a omusi omu no mu ye dikanfo omu hayen yo omu hayen pa minim se men kase eye Bible said nimbia me manfo ninti ene omudi yen ewura babi asisi ewura we enema ema Abraham obaade ne kwa apam tumia o demonstrate ye before obi ana wiase nyina gina tom se na onye nipa ketwa oyo hene a na tese wo tumi pa na gese ye beka na wa ben enti upie na nim kra na hope na oro ni nyame no Abraham said me ni nyame ya me de me ho ato no so me nsom ne da na ne nti Abraham won nsom ne dia eja no na edare no Abraham sa ani ampa bia munye e tam ne kotso mu na ampa na nsa na omukohwe na Abraham na onamu a chese odi asakura yi yakobo hina manyo hinse mkofa ne mra yakofa ne ba na gesa ampa ɔhene sampa bibi wɔ mu ɛhɔ na ne papa sɛ me mɛsom Abraham nyame ne nua soso ka sɛ Nimrod ɔhene me nso mɛsom bi na ɔno ne ɛyade a yɛpɛ ne na to gyanum dada nti sɛ wobɛsom deɛ a yɛma ne so egyanum surudu na ɔno na ne gidie wɛn ti ɔno deɛ ɛhɔ a nagya ɔyɛ nso aha ɛna yɛ the story a ɔbɔ adeɛ ne Abraham ɛkɔ apam ɔfa ɛna yɛ the third covenant Abrahamic covenant okay ɛno ɛna bɛhyɛ Hebrew the Hebrew Israelites
ɔno
bɛhyɛ aseɛ ɛhɔ ti story no enie ɛnɛ ɔfa ma wahu Abraham story na ɛma ɔbɛyɛ Hebrew Genesis chapter 14:13 Abraham the Hebrew ɔbɛyɛ Hebrew ni no ɛnɛ ɔfa ma wahu story no sɛnɛteɛ ɔba pastor yaba ɔsɛ
Kofi mede ma no asikwaku na bɛka asɛm baako anaa mmienu na kyerɛ sɛ ne dwumadie no yɛde aba wanka bi kura de anka mempene
yo ansa na yɛbɛkɔ rapani hɔ no pastor book of Enoch nso so wɔ ha the book of Enoch ɛno nso ɛwɔ ha mede the book of Jasher kyerɛ wo dada wei ɛyɛ the book of Enoch ane ɛno nti mo a mopɛ saa book yi nwoma yi nyinaa bi no ɔfada Roma yɛtumi akɔpɛ ni nyinaa bi aba okay mɛkɔ bra panyi hɔ na okay o deɛ yɛnkɔ ne hɔ messages na aba no moma yɛnhwɛ messages na ansa na yakɔ bra panyi ɛhɔ okay we say offer medi wachi da Kwame Mante from Yeji yo offer or say Kwame Mante say offer wo de wachi onyai dida Wafa reads a lot and does a lot of research. I think the 3 men who were thrown into fire by Nebuchadnezzar had their fate from Abraham's story. The same cave that saved Abraham saved King David when Saul was chasing him. The name of the cave is Abdullam. Thanks, Wafa. Yo, we so dia or the buyer no is having real asemu. Or no so ne dia or the beto no. We so say ignorance really kills. Wafa ni din ama. Ama for kasa hey ignorant. Yo, let me see a call YouTuber obi at the message buyer. Oh, other YouTube for my message mind then. Okay, yenko of Israel ho na echiri e besamba. Of Israel, besamba akwa babia bi. Me you say ahode ni bibia eboko.
Life is good.
E da obo adia say life is good. No na nkofo say yo mo de pa. And na obi so say o kan say na wadwa. Obi so say Canada na send nkran. Aha. Okay, enunti na ye ba wo nchen e da say.
Die of aka na yi. Saa nwo nyina no ho
sure
na abofo no Roma for me compilation no o me nyina afi Bible no ntiwe no eyobi nwanwa asa we dey what so fa yeah ho enam say yakopon Abraham nante ye no dikemo force Abraham ye oyekemo nei ofene Ibrahim. Hey, Edio. Na books na ebema wo say asema si ya no. Abofo no compare Bible no. Mo fanka ho.
Sa.
Wo ma fo di wiase bone.
Bone papa.
O kana o hin bi buafu. Oh, also no atefio o say bi book yo commando.
That's how call him.
Book of Enoch. Ade e bi na kuya ya o tuko so tree. We be wo.
Sir.
Bible no kana ketua bi enafa compilation no. So come Bible no a asa Abraham kwampo no o hu no wada
www as onim no kra
no
one ben no kra ba bia
enti no obi ofi a bo di confidence oboye asa eno krampo no he said the time no ena to kosoro babo no ba haye Oma ha papa you both one more unya ebeboa
sir
book of Adam and Eve
sir
book and sin na ho no asa Adam kwampo wan go school padro book
asa onim
that's what for kan no Abraham oko school oko sua de won Noah
and Shem
so no try Bible no obi kin kan asa Noah na Abraham o man hia da
no o kuya kwa na say no akra ni Nimrod kwa no o man hia
asa the pride ntu jebru we Shadrach Meshach and Abednego omo pe
ni say they dey see here
the kind of Abraham atujam a wanhye
amenu be ye nyina so ma
oh yeah
Israel asefo Israel ma nti o mbe pie eno na ma o mbe pie Nebukadnezar nim no o mo se ye nana ye ne tujam ye ni sei esan nyankopon ode ne ho ato no so ene ono ne ekura ne munti no wanse na o ye se yesuro
Abraham no oye Kristo ne
dabi
so mo hwani Abraham oye Kristo ne Abraham oye kremoni
dabi
Abraham oni pe bia
onye jiuni
odo no tu Yankopon so oye Hebrew ni Yankopon di ya no onante Yankopon akwanso sa ngma we nyina no omo le fi Bible mu okin ka Bible na emu ha
sa
de me kan say na de my boko Yankopon boda si
batuja
bibia no kwaso kama
we bi ja
so we hear book we bia o de frɛ
number batuja
bibia ma
sa
na fruit ma start say sana eno kwa no yo hene o Ethiopia Bible na nka o
anka na go
books bi e fi Bible mu no Bible na kan ye book no kan ye e say abafo mo hunu a odwe me different Abraham bibini o Enoch bibini o
sa pepepe
abafo hwetumi ya na bifu kura book wi infantry book wi infantry efu nya ba ko fama Christopher Santai nti o hwe book ya o kan kan be retifie ba confused
papa
o se mo kwan mo frɛ na etie o so ka anwasi
ya da se wa mo kwan se omo enfrem for manu disem emfa embra na nti mpamcho mamo frɛ me line yi na we pacho mo fa call line no ento fidie no so na nkofo frɛ me papa em se na kra no messages no o mate so mpese o mo ne me kasa ye call Facebook I say did Abraham grow up in your no pe one way message no kra okay yo we saying okay yes sir hello udini fakwa ofrefi hello udini fakwa ofrefi
ato it's like I do master kwade
okay yetio otie ne ho eno nti
ima de nka
ima entie wo ho eye phone so na ye kasa eno nti oba me sra wadaro ma me ntie wo ho na yentume enkasa ane
baby na ba me kasa fi akotia
yo yetio
oba de nkamo ho oba de sisi mu enya mama ba bia ye shishi Pere Abraham sorry baby fi ni baby e ko yina no me pa bone se abade endom mo ene e papa yina na nchesha mo de mai ni pe yina nti afie ne ko ko bi ya sa fa ne ya ke na be you know, hey, because you're trying to hear me. About the entire bar.
Yeah, that's it. And one of the same. Yeah, per se, I was saying so, and from my end, say, a radio station, see, a radio stations are. Jumadi of Atite Nema Omkasa El radio station who do we so. A year Akraha and Kraiha, a year Mothers FM. Ubenyano Ewo station no frequency near 102.7. Hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi.
But a blow my captain.
Yeah, but you.
You're better off. I think I'm sure not. But people will credit. And the credit dama, your consult at Grand One Yako. Dama is Naya. And the set in which I will be. I'm now the Ghana may after cast or fancy you. I can say, Ninka education and Ninka Fiaxi. The belief in what I will pass the link.
Yeah, that's yo, yeah, that's it. Also, when you December with the Abba Mothers FM and 102.7. And no, if you're the BR 9 to 10 and you break, if you're the BR 9 to 10 and you break, and you walk Cape Coast, and also a Darling FM, and also hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi.
But one money going to you.
Nebuane, dear, every number, the number bet to jar. Ofra on ne wo bedi ho enkomo enu ti ansa na ebe wie dwumadi no ye de number no ebe tudwa. Okay, Darling FM Cape Coast eno so 90.9 eno kwase da bia 8 to 9 enwumre na dwumadi no ahyase asanye so. Hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Yo, asanye so the Beat FM and also 95.5 FM and no meme there be 9:30 to 10 o'clock enyumre. Okay. Yes sir, ebia na oye. Hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Shalom.
Yeah, shalom.
You can say free being called of your jam one
me pa cho yeti o.
Na ko pon shira mo.
Yeah, that's it.
Books you know, na chi bebre bu me phone so.
Okay.
You ready for a year of what dear pa. I have a shower. That's what time the picture motor media with that.
Yes, yeah, that's it. You be a jo so. Ebia na oye ekuo bi. Ana se empo asori. Otu nsa efrem panyifo a na ebia opese bibi wo ho a onti ase na unyaya anka niema bi wo ho a ye mekyerɛkyerɛ o manfo na akwanya wo ho otu nsa efra ye de number betudwa. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Monsieur me de abigo me ka fe free den chadom yake.
Me pa to yeti o.
Me pacha I am the class program we one of them. Na ami will credit first time I will be sure na the issue to say black man and pattern to pin who that yeah bad dear guys so you take coming and I don't understand men so I'm the swimming about the game and kasa
yo me say oba dear dan no memenda shibat memenda and the year oba dear that the 7th day Sabbath no memenda sada no yensum oba de na emomu no da ye de here a holy convocation what they call ehyiamu kronkron na wakohia empanyifo a omado asukot se wofa Professor Emeritus yen Accra ha no oba the University of Kaokudia beba na professor ankasa gina board anim na ode wako school ama wahu oba ade na de kwan ya sesa ofa so eno na memenda bia no ye a holy convocation. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Me pata fu kuma se ya fame owusu.
Me pa so yeti o.
Oh, na ko pon ehia mu pa e wo duma moyo. Nje papa, yem parking kan yo. Yem parking kan. Ala bi buza ko fu bi fe. Shadrach ne Meshach ne Abednego ejama mutimi kodemu that means omu nyina so bi obaadi omu nyina so bi obaadi ejama omu nya sa ajije ni ka ze so unya nkopon kura point ni an ye ya ibi ejama ro kodemu that means omu nyina so ejama ko foro so no ko no mo mai ni tasem no o ye pasam no ye pe genuine word of God no na ko o njira ba pa nja ko man ko tenti no ntimi nya more research one famra
ye da se se onso do di abanisa ane enti baby a wo bia no oto nsa efre ya papa tete ne mofra e won na ase senye papa ankasa kura na owo ma wo ho a omonso omakwadare ye baby a wo bia no to nsa frɛ ye nse ye mra ye beba na number ubetimi afrɛ se wo pese e bia hello udi ni fa kwa afrɛ ya mi pato haye ni udi ni fa kwa afrɛ fi hello. Yeah, Udini Fakwa. Good afternoon, sir.
If I say wake up Africa.
Wake up Africa, so I now want to. Udini any Fakwa Africa.
Yo. Problem over.
Yo, young quay.
If I show me to be war, I have made a work. If I am a commander, a worker, if I am a million more, the name of couple of very interested.
Yo, asem. Yabemao, number. Me pacho say, TV no shall see. Anka wo say number bi scrolling e wase wo be wo say ya cho owura bi Willy nanka wa fa ne number wonya Willy wo hwem abo say Kumase rep wo ho no Willy nanka wa fa ne number hello udi ni fa kwa ofrefi
ya best way de tola ni tola bu ba wo mo re na mo so bi ba ni en so bi wa so mo a
yate
ya so ata yate
yo obi requested Torah of Israel with the wasuma nyasem keto our books no yo we say please was Abraham just a black man or African and also is all blacks Africans? Okay we dia ode abanono hello udini fa kwa ofrefi
Pato, o se me join the Cup Africa ni.
Fa na wo. Okay, ya say ya number bi betudwa. O say.
E ka me title.
Ana o fa na wo.
Mo gbo kwa.
Kumase, okay. Kumase ye mo hia mu wo asem. Na hwe oti ni na se bo nse Kumase owura na oye rep ho number guase e fra ni Willy. Aha. Me say ye kase ye bobo mu nyina number na emre ni nti no ye sere mu madaroma aha se na me ka no ebia na hello udini fa kwa ofrefi hello udini fa kwa ofrefi
we de ofa de nyami hira ni pa dwumadi a wodi no
yo
hira no
yo
ni sofa no ana pese me kan okay ye ni papa ni sofa ni sofa para bi ubia ni sha manu kwantenti
yo
no ana de manu
yo ofa so eda wano ase se osi enhira emra ne so eno ana ohwehwe se ba bi e wadu ne de se oba ade hello dini fa kwa ofrefi hello dini fa kwa ofrefi
we ka se gba ga man ko e fe
me pa cho yetie o yetie o wasem tudwa
ina program no na me pese me wi yi kasa
me ba to contribute yetie o
ode
me se kasa yetie o na ntie o ho emfi TV nim
ayi mo yende yam de kan ko wa ya de papa na book no ya mo me no ba ne nya bi nto
mate ye be bon number
na ba so mo se be am tu share so bi nya bi especially na ni hu kobo
yate ye da wano ase em se edi producer ye be MSS say week bia no be mayen numbers be ye 5 ye de be tudwa emiaye no Kofodua Kumase hello udini fa kwa Alfred Efi hello udini fa kwa Alfred Efi good afternoon
me pa cho me ka fa fi ju fra to be maka nan
yo yetie o
aho ke ka fa fi pa na fa de ya me ka so de ko no ni ka tre dan ka o mo I was for brilliant in pop. Then only question is that Nimrod will say one or not, that may not. Who can show no digging in my brody? I know it is me. And Abraham said, Bruni, and I said, I know this is where the question.
Yo, say, oh, and a programming, say, be one shall see, Abraham, dear, any Nimrod in Yano, yes, I before our fashion or Tremu, Africa for be mine, I be before or Mufi Africa. Ha, tum. Abraham, any Nimrod in Yana. Yo, hello, Dinny Fakwa Frefi. Hello, Dinny Fakwa Frefi.
But all the day now, make us a matter.
What can I say? Yo, me pato yeti o.
Me pato, me say, Abraham wrong. Not a number of or no war, but you got 50 of the Liberty for the airport. I don't call Habitat and the thing is, Kuruna no work on.
Okay, yo. Abraham, okay, Bible na natural say, oh yeah, ne kasa okay ye Chad. Na ne kuro office no ye na wo Babylon. Corona, baby a Nimrod, etetere ya. Oh yeah, ne empire no, area ni mu nyina no. Kuro ba ko a Abraham no ofi mu no, Chad. Tina okak Chad kasa. Nti ho na ofi by history. We dey me say magina of anamu say mayiwa no a. Ane. Okay. Say aha na course no ye di ebesi. Ebia na se na me ka no na opese ewo kuo bi asori o manfo opese ye de nkyerɛkyerɛ bi ebe ma wom na bibia ebia wo hwa onti ase mu no pese o manfo no nya nti ase yie no oto nsa frɛ ya ye beba number na obetimi afrɛ no for sa dwumadie no anase ebia wonti bibia ase awo dwumadie ye di yi open nsambisa bi nsamfua bi opese uhu niema bi ani so a number no 0244 686557 se opese oto nsa frɛ ye wo dwumadie bi ase ne ye de nkyerɛkyerɛ ebrewa ebi asori kuo ana ekuo foforo bi muslimifo kuo bi babia oto nsa frɛ ye se ye nkyerɛkyerɛ yi opese ye ba ne be bie niema ni so kyerɛwa an ya ye krado number no na mebuba kyerɛ se 0244 686557 sa number we open sem bisa bi nsamfua bi ania anoye bi wonsem bi ho a sa number we ya opusu a ne wo bia no nkomo bia wo ho na ono obedi sa nso so ene ye momo number ye dwumadi a ye di ofa ohia ofa o ma ne be 4 hours kra ebeboa no nanso eyewura mankwa fidie so no otena so a waboa ye papa ehse ye tuaka eno nti ye se kwanchan de efe dwete sika ene ye de ye eno nti ebia na wo fie asem ye wo de pa a wo pesen kan ye betumi anya extension of time no ane bedom yen be ye mwa se be ya kwasia da bia premoto a ye betumi atena fidie yi so 2 hours ene above na ye tumi de dwumadi asomo ye momo number no 0245 07 01 64 we momo number ntia se me to me bo ase me bo na wo nya ne yie pa ti number no 0245 07 01 64 edin a ebeba Joseph Kofi Ediko eno eni din a ofra ebeba ane sani ameka no books no so ebi wo ho eno so ofra 0244 888 910 0244 ope book a pacho ope book ene enema bi aka bia spectacle no ne aka bia na ofre 0244 888 910 pacho onsa ebetumi aka buku bia baby awo ewo Ghana mantwe bia no ofra yen a onsa betumi aka bi we say great teachers you do it all no challenger and Christians are deeply deceived by Protestant Bible called King James Bible from Yao Rasta Agona Fie. Okay. Ebusia emi say aha ena oba de adom yen aso aye won tabakore so na dwumadie no ye de abawiye. Me de ne Kofi Kume osomfo me na metena adwakese nim ma dwumadie timi de somwo. Me ne ofa ya opoku danko a executive director ede ma iko efe no Freedom Mind Movement. Ono na oye panyi na no ni ena ne ba eye Israel nkroma ono so ye national coordinator sampanyifo yi ena ne dwumadie yi meni om sin konwa ye de somwo oba de dom yen no de yen kwama yen ya da se ne ye besan ahia biom me ka wo se memenda bia no dwumadie yi ye san repeat memenda bia dwumadie yi ye repeat anonti memenda ebo no mienu 2 o'clock at 4 o'clock but modern na tena wagwam Royal Television so fidikasi so obenya dwumadie no ahwe oba de enchiro bibia akramo.
Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we